Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas Semeta, Chair of the Statutory Public Meeting. Before continuing, we will now rise from closed session. May I please have the mover read the motion in its entirety?
Thank you very much, Chair Mehta. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cooper. Recommendation that Council rise from closed session and reconvene in open session at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. We'll call the vote.
Opening voting. Closing voting. And that carries.
Thank you. During closed session, discussions occurred with council and staff related to orientation and training and confidential negotiations. Before I begin, I would like to provide you with a safety notice for those of you with us in the council chambers. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the council chambers using the nearest exit staircase. If you require assistance, please see our clerk staff for further assistance. I ask that you please gather outside of City Hall in the Farmers Market parking lot and await further instructions. As a reminder, City of Cambridge council meetings are broadcasted on the City of Cambridge website, the City of Cambridge YouTube page, and archived on the city's website. On that note, we had 158 views on YouTube and 1 delegate during our last statutory public meeting. Please note that we have rules of engagement at council and committee meetings. I ask that you be respectful while others are speaking, refrain from any demonstrations, and I encourage you to actively listen to others. For staff and delegates alike, please be sure that you stand 6 to 8 inches from the microphone at the presenter's podium for optimal sound quality. There is a remote at the podium that you may use to advance your slides. As a note for members of the gallery joining us in council chambers, public members are not permitted to enter the horseshoe at any point in time during the meeting. If you wish to speak to a council member, you may schedule a meeting through the mayor and council's office by emailing mayor@cambridge.ca or council@cambridge.ca. Alternatively, we welcome you to gain the attention of a council member by motioning to them from the gallery during the break or at the end of the meeting to speak with them further. Our clerk's team will ask any public member who enters the horseshoe to return to the gallery. Clerk staff will inform the indicated council member of your request. We have 2 statutory public meetings under the Ontario Planning Act. It is my pleasure to introduce council, Councillor Hamilton, Mayor Liggett, Councillor Kimpson, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Schwery, Councillor Earnshaw, and Councillor Devine. We embrace our shared responsibility with the First Nations people to take care of this earth and its creatures. We can only do so by walking the path as partners stewarding this land, as we have been given the duty together to live in balance and harmony with all living things. We acknowledge and respect the Anishinaabe, Chinatan, and Haudenosaunee people who came before us and who we live amongst. By honoring this truth of past and present, may we come to true reconciliation through listening, reflecting, and learning. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank everyone for joining us for this meeting. We appreciate your participation. As we come together to serve the community, I ask that we create a welcoming and positive environment for everyone that includes respect, that we listen to each other with care, speak thoughtfully, and engage kindly with one another. Kindness, that we treat everyone, council staff and the public, with respect and understanding, and inclusion, that we embrace diverse perspectives and respect each other's opinions. Together we make this meeting space one where respect, kindness, and inclusion are the heart of everything we do, that this is a safe space. Behavior that is disrespectful, disruptive, aggressive, or intimidating will result in those individuals being asked to leave. A reminder to members of council that the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act requires members of council to declare any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to a matter under consideration. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, members of council? Seeing none, we will move forward with our agenda. We have 2 statutory public meetings under the Ontario Planning Act. I will first call upon pre-registered delegations for all public meetings, followed by a brief 3-minute call-out period to any members of our virtual or in-person audience that wish to speak. Members of our virtual audience wishing to speak to an item before us may contact us at clerks@cambridge.ca or text the number 226-218-1184. City staff are on hand to monitor this number and email address during the course of the statutory public meeting. Please note that number is also available on the city website, our agenda, and on the live stream of our meeting located on the City of Cambridge YouTube page. Each delegate who participates virtually or in person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. I remind members of council and the public that there is no debate of the item in the public meeting. Following this, I will ask the applicant to provide a presentation, followed by the comments from staff. I also want to remind council that the statutory public meeting item will be before council a second time with a recommendation report. This process is for public consultation. Council will consider all oral and written comments prior to making a decision on a planning application. If a member of the public would like to be informed of further reports and/or decisions on the matter, we ask that you please fill out your email, name, and contact information by completing the sign-up sheet located at the back of council chambers. The sheet will be used by our planning division to keep you informed of any file changes. We will now move on to delegations, and we have 0 pre-registered delegation requests this evening. I will call each delegate in the order that we receive the delegation request. Yep, I will now call for additional members of the public who would like to speak to any of the public meetings this evening. If you are with us in person and wish to speak to the item, please feel free to raise your hand. If you are attending virtually, you may text the number 226-218-1184 or email clerks@cambridge.ca. And during the break, our clerk will advise if we receive any requests to speak virtually. I ask for your patience while we await delegates, and we'll be taking a 3-minute break to wait for callers. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Well, welcome back, everyone. We have not received any requests to speak to this item during our break. A reminder to anyone interested in either of these public meetings, you may submit written correspondence on the matter for inclusion in the minutes if you are unable to delegate. I have received confirmation from staff that there are no further requests to speak. Before we proceed further, we have Sarah Austin, the Acting Director of Planning, with us for some remarks. Welcome, Sarah.
Good evening, and through the chair, we just wanted to provide committee with an update on a process change that planning services have implemented that takes effect with today's meeting. So as you are all aware, for the past few years, there's been no staff-prepared report or staff presentation at public meetings that relate to development applications. This was put in place primarily due to the legislation related to timelines for required decisions, and removing the report and the presentation helped streamline our process and ensure timely public meetings. However, an unintended consequence of this practice, as has been illustrated in the recent application for 38 grand, is that planning staff were not necessarily providing committee members with the information related to complete applications and decision timelines. So as a result of that, we have reviewed our process, we've made several internal improvements, and one external, which is being implemented tonight. So with tonight's meeting, after the applicant's presentation, the staff planner on the file will be sharing a slide with committee that provides the date the application was deemed complete, the date a decision is required by, and the closest currently scheduled council meeting to that decision date. I would note in some cases, like one of the ones tonight, the closest available council meeting is in December. The deadline is not till the end of January. So if we aim for December, we are drastically shortening the time frame for that application. So part of their presentation, staff will likely indicate that a special council meeting may be requested closer to that timeline, which would allow the applicant the full scope of the time period to work with staff on the application. So this is a continuous improvement measure that we're sharing with you. We believe it increases the transparency on the status of applications and our decision timelines. And I certainly welcome feedback from you following tonight's meeting or any meeting in the future regarding this change, and if this helps or if there's further information we can provide. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, members of council? Mayor Jan?
That was an interesting look. So Sarah, sometimes the applicant does not have all the information when they put in the application. So we send it back. But the clock's already started ticking, right?
Not necessarily. So there is a certain checklist of items that are required to deem it complete. So if that information is not available or has not come in with their application, we note that to them, we issue a notice that it's not complete and the clock does not start yet.
So maybe Mr. Bromberg could answer, he knows where I'm going with this because we've been caught on this.
Mr. Bromberg?
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor to the rest of the planning committee. I think, Mayor Liggett, what you're referring to is we're getting information, but through internal comments or other outside agency comments and review of those studies, we have some further questions and need some clarification, and then we wait for additional information. It might be the result of a public meeting and council feedback or the public feedback in which the developer hears certain requests or certain concerns, and the fact that they're willing then to maybe adjust their application, and there's a time lag. I can't control that time lag, or we as staff can't control that time. And so part of our role and trying to inform not only the public but council yourselves that there may be times that we're asking to go past the legislated deadline, whether it's 90 days or 120 days, because we think that there's a path where we can come with a recommendation to say that this would be something that we would support. If it's clear that the application is not something that we could support, then it's relatively easy to come back with that kind of recommendation. So I think that's, Mayor, what you were asking for, or?
Yes,
To
but
clarify.
we have been caught where we've done that, and the clock was ticking, and so we were held to that. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, we're looking for some support from the applicant as well, that they're willing to work with staff. Certainly, there is no guarantee that someone might appeal for lack of decision. But we're taking information from the applicant. If they appear willing to work with us and potentially modify the application based on council's comments and the public's comments, and allow staff the time to review revised studies and revised information, then we're hoping that based on face value, that they would be willing to wait until we're able to come back to council for a decision.
So on the off chance that we get caught again, is there a way to have them sign a document stating it starts here, not back here?
I'm not going to look at our legal staff beside me, but I will say that if the provincial legislation states something, I'm not sure there's a lot of legal value to two people entering into sort of an agreement. If the law says that a decision needs to be made within a certain time period, they can always appeal.
Can I go further, please, Mr. Chair? So it seems to me by being nice and trying to accommodate them, they could actually go back on us and say, no, I started this here and this hasn't been completed, therefore I'm going to the OLT for going past the 120 days.
I would suggest that if the proponent is looking to appeal, it's likely because the applicant feels that that we might not recommend approval for what they're applying for. So instead of waiting for council maybe to say no, that they'll just start the process earlier.
Okay, so I think we need to look at this further and see where we can get caught. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Earnshaw.
Thank you, Chair Armetta. And following up on the questions that Mayor Liggett asked, I would have thought that in the absence of a provision in the legislation that bans contracting out, it would be open to parties to negotiate for a waiver of the time period in order to permit the continuing negotiation. I realize we'd have to defer to legal counsel on that, but it seems to me that it's not impossible for that to occur.
Councillor Kempson.
Thank you very much, Chair Ahmeda. Thank you, Sarah, for your update. I guess I'm wondering, is there something that we can put in place or a procedure that we do our very best to ensure that when staff are deeming an application as complete, that it is as fulsome as it perhaps needs to be, because once it's deemed complete, the clock starts, but if staff don't deem it to be complete, then the clock doesn't start. So is that something that we could perhaps look at to see if there's a way that we can ensure that everyone's starting with all of the ingredients for the recipe, so to speak?
So through the chair, we certainly try to do that. The way my understanding of the legislation is written is essentially if the document is part of the package, it's a check mark that it's there, and it's not necessarily a review of the content of that. What we generally very much encourage any applicant to do is to go through the pre-consultation process, which generally allows them to get a very fulsome set of comments so that when they are submitting an actual application, they are hopefully submitting things ways that are already addressing comments we've made, and that certainly helps. One of the items that staff do struggle with is we're often waiting on comments from external agencies, because that's part of the circulation, and we can't always predict what type of information they might be looking for or have. So we certainly try our best, but essentially the quality and the content is vetted, for lack of a better term, through the circulation process.
Thank you. I see no further questions. Our first statutory public meeting is agenda number 7.1, public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment 155 Guelph Avenue. We have a presentation from David Butler. Welcome, David.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Mayor, and members of the committee. My name is David Butler. I'm a registered professional planner working on behalf of Fusion Homes. Prior to that, I was the lead planner for Polacor, who made the initial application in 2018.
Sorry, just a minute. We're just trying to pull up your slides. And then you can present. We're just going to have to take a brief recess. We're having technical issues, but then we'll get them up as soon as we can. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience. You may begin. You may start. We have your slides up.
The Forbes estate, located just north of Hespeler Village on the east side of Guelph Avenue, is a 4.78 hectare property. I think you're well aware of this property, but Mill Pond is to the southeast. You have the CNR line along the southern boundary. The old Forbes house, designated heritage building, has been severed off, but that was part of the original application. And at the southwest corner is something called the Stone Tower, which is proposed to be relocated to Jacob's Landing. And most of the northeast part of the property, which I'll show you in greater detail in a minute, is part of a floodplain area and ecological area. So some background. I was involved in the initial application made in 2018, and between 2018 and 2022, the city processed a development application by Polo Corp. Inc. At that time, there was an application for a draft plan of subdivision and a zoning bylaw. Ultimately, that plan and that bylaw was approved by the Ontario Land Tribunal in May of 2022, and I gave evidence at that hearing. Since then, the property has been acquired by Fusion Homes in April of 2024. What you're seeing on this slide, on the left side, bottom left, is the original plan of subdivision, which divided up the property in a whole series of blocks. And on the right, you see a concept plan which contained a combination of single detached homes, street towns, and stacked towns. In total, the application was approved for 185 units. As I said, the application having been approved and with Fusion Homes coming in, they have decided to change the site plan slightly. And so they've been discussing with staff some changes to the zoning bylaw, and it's intended that most of these changes are based on administrative and technical problems that can be resolved through this zoning bylaw amendment that's before you. Site works have begun, and there's a model home located where the intended access point to Guelph Avenue is proposed. Which I'm showing now is the site plan proposed by Fusion Homes, and they've reduced the total to 160 total units. 23 of those will be single detached homes, 23 street towns, and 114 stacked towns. There's a large open space block protecting the Forbes Creek and the floodplain in the east side of the property, and that's all going to be designated open space and remains open space. And essentially, the only major change in the layout is the central portion where the stacked towns, which previously had been in a north-south configuration, are now in an east-west configuration. I don't have a pointer, but I think you can see that. And there's a large private amenity space located between those stacked towns. There's approximately 9,300 meters of open space and 2,510 meters of common amenity space. Continues to be a tree protection area, both along the east side of Guelph Avenue, that's 6 meters. There's also a heritage stone wall that will be reconstructed and saved, potentially in situ, but it will depend on the ultimate city road widening. On the north edge of the property, there's also another tree protection area of 16.7 meters at the widest point and 3 meters east of that, and these back on to the homes on the south side of Shaw Avenue. In terms of the planning context, it's very simple. It conforms with a regional official plan, which designates this as an urban area and part of the delineated built-up area. The City of Cambridge OP designates the land as low, medium density residential and natural open space system, and the Cambridge zoning bylaw has a series of site-specific zones, and I'll show you that to you in a second. The reason for the application really is to make it easier for the city to deal with the one site plan. Previously, there were going to be 5 or 6 site plans, and so I'll show you the ultimate plan. But there's no changes to the perimeter of the lands. Those were all negotiated with city staff and the neighbors to the west and to the north. And all of these potential changes, and most of them are very minor, have already been discussed at length with staff. And as far as I'm aware, there are no significant planning issues. So it's really a series of very technical administrative changes to help facilitate this development. In the simplest form, I'm showing the draft plan of subdivision. That's showing on the top the old Polo Corp plan approved by the OLT. And all of that development package is now going to be in one large block. And the property will be developed as one large development showing one site plan. This graphic shows a few minor changes to the central portion where they're going to consolidate the RM2 zone, which was previously the street towns. So actually simplifying, there's no other significant changes to the zone boundaries. And the bylaw that is going to be before you ultimately at your next council meeting has been written and discussed at length with staff. And so all of the planning issues, in my mind, have been dealt with. This is really a very, very simple application. There's no new development. It's virtually identical to what was approved by the Ontario Land Tribunal. I prepared a planning justification report as required by staff as part of making a complete application. I have that on my computer, but it has a lot of detail that I'm obviously not going to be able to give you in my 5 minutes. And previously, all of these studies listed here were vetted by staff and submitted as part of the original application and are all still relevant and professionally done. So in conclusion, it's my planning opinion that the application conforms with the provincial planning statement of 2024. It conforms to the regional official plan and meets the general intent and purpose of the City of Cambridge official plan. It maintains the intent of the approved zoning already in effect, and the proposed development contributes to the city's growth and density targets. There's no increase in density or height. In fact, it's less density. And will provide for very needed housing that will integrate with the established residential community, which is stable, and will also protect the valuable environmental and historical resources. The proposed development can be adequately serviced with existing municipal infrastructure, and in my opinion, the proposed development implements the original intent of the existing approvals already in place. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will conclude my remarks.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you, Chairman, and through you, and thank you very much, David, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Just so I'm clear, the reason that you're altering the orientation of the townhouses from north-south to east-west, the purpose of your request is just to consolidate blocks and make a simpler permitting process? Is that the justification, or are there other reasons that are traffic flow or design?
No, I think it's a product that Fusion Homes feels comfortable with. The PoloCore application was more back-to-back. It's a slightly different product, which they have built and know quite well. And as I made a comment a minute ago, it actually creates a better open space area for the residents in the center of those four center townhouse blocks. And previously there had been another driveway running between the PoloCore blocks. That has been eliminated and replaced with a public walkway. So it's all very pedestrian and adds more landscaped open space.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kempson?
Thank you very much, Chair Mehta. Thank you for your presentation. I note that on one of the slides you've provided us with where you speak to the general summary of requested amendments, and it talks about the location of parking spaces. Do the changes have any effect on the number of parking spaces or just their actual locations?
The parking essentially is the same, which is essentially one parking space per unit, which would be either a single a street town or a stacked town. And for the stacked towns, there is an additional visitor parking space built into that, so there's extra parking spaces. I'm not sure, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We also have a brief presentation from Jacqueline Hammond. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Good evening, Chair and members of councils and all in attendance tonight. I'm Jacqueline Hanneman. I am a senior planner with the City of Cambridge. I am the planner that will be working on this file. As Sarah mentioned, we're just going to do a little quick rundown on the application, when it was submitted, and the deadline that Planning Act approval needs to be made for this application. So an application is considered complete under the Planning Act on the date that the city receives all the required information and fees as prescribed by the Act. The complete application date for this application was September 29th, 2025. According to the Planning Act, the decision deadline date for a zoning bylaw amendment application is set for 90 days from the date of the complete application. So for this application, the decision deadline is December 28th. This means council must make a decision on an application before December 28th. Otherwise, the applicant could decide to appeal the application to the Ontario Land Tribunal on the basis of a non-decision of their application. And that would just be because the city has not approved or refused the application yet. Staff and the applicant are making every effort to meet the Planning Act timeline for this application, and we are anticipating bringing a recommendation for this application to council on the December 15th council meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions, members of council? Seeing none, thank you. Does council have any comments? If a member of council wishes to provide staff with direction, please take this time to do so. Mayor Jan?
Just a question. I'd heard from the delegate that the stone wall may have to be moved for the widening, the city widening, but it's my understanding that it doesn't need to be moved for any of the road widening. Can staff confirm that? I believe we were told that previously.
Ms. Austin?
So putting my engineering hat back on, so that is correct. We have looked at a revised cross-section for Guelph Ave in that area that would allow that wall to remain in place.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was right. Thanks.
So are there any other comments? This will be your only opportunity tonight to be able to do that. So does council have any direction comments? Well, seeing none, I declare this public meeting closed. And our next statutory public meeting, the last one of the night, is agenda number 7.2, public meeting for the proposed OPA and ZBA 165 Cherry Blossom Road. We have a presentation from Kate Willis from MHBC. Welcome, Kate.
Okay, good evening, Chair, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Kate Wills. I'm an associate at MHBC Planning, and I've been retained by our client to file an application for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for the lands at 165 Cherry Blossom Road. The property is located in the southwest corner of Cherry Blossom Road and Boxwood Drive, which turns into Royal Oak Road, and has frontage onto both streets. The site is currently used for a single detached home on a large lot, approximately 1.15 hectares in size. There's about 105 meters of frontage on Cherry Blossom Road and 168 meters of frontage on Boxwood or Royal Oak Road. The site has long frontages along both Cherry Blossom and Royal Oak / Boxwood, and is surrounded by a mix of residential and employment uses. To the north of the site of Cherry Blossom Road is the Toyota Motor Manufacturing Facility. This facility has berms that line Cherry Blossom Road, separating the existing residential uses from the industrial use and the railway track to the north. Other employment uses are located to the northeast along Boxwood Drive and Cherry Blossom Road. To the east of the subject lands is a spiritual use, which is currently under construction and located on the other side of Boxwood Drive. Royal Oak Road is located to the south of the subject lands. Single detached dwellings are located on both sides of Royal Oak Road. Beyond these dwellings, further to the south, is Highway 401. And immediately west of the property is a stormwater management facility. And further west along Cherry Blossom Road are low-density residential uses with lot sizes ranging from 0.28 hectares to 0.4 hectares in size. And to the southwest is Conestoga College's Reuter Drive campus. The development proposal is to divide the property into 4 lots in single detached residential units. There are 3 new lots being proposed in addition to the retained lot. The existing house will remain and is currently occupied by our clients. Each lot is planned to be serviced by private wells and septic systems. A hydrogeological study has confirmed that the proposed lot sizes would allow for a lot area large enough for a single detached home, approximately 4,000 square feet in size and 3 bedrooms, to be serviced on private services. The lot ranges proposed range from about 0.27 hectares to 0.3 hectares, which is consistent with the character of the adjacent residential lots. Currently, the site is designated as Future Urban Reserve. We are requesting to amend the current designation to low/medium density residential, which better reflects the intended use and the current residential use on the property. We're also requesting a site-specific policy that would allow for private servicing on water and septic. This is a modest form of intensification, adding 3 single detached lots and extending the same designation of the existing residential in the neighborhood. The current zoning of the site is agricultural A1. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site to residential 1, which is matching the zoning to the adjacent residential lands and residential lands to the south. We're requesting a small reduction in the minimum lot size from 3,000 square feet to 2,700, square meters to 2,700 square meters. All other zoning standards are met. This is a minor reduction, with 2 of the proposed lots being planned at 2,900 square meters and the third one being planned at 2,700 square meters. These lot sizes are very similar in size to neighboring large lot residential properties. Several technical studies were completed to ensure the development is appropriate. A hydrogeological study confirmed that the private wells and septic systems are feasible for the existing and proposed lots. A land use compatibility study showed no concerns with the nearby industrial uses, stating no issues with air quality, odor, or dust. A functional servicing report confirms that drainage and grading can be managed on site. A noise study recommended specific home styles for the proposed lot that fronts onto Cherry Blossom Road and noise warning clauses for buyers. And a sightline analysis has helped identify safe driveway locations. In summary, the proposal aligns with the provincial and regional planning policies. It supports low-density residential growth in a way that fits the surrounding area. The technical studies confirm that the lots can safely and appropriately operate with private services. There's no impact on on existing employment uses, and the proposed zoning is compatible with the adjacent residential land and support the development of 3 new homes. Thank you for the opportunity to present in front of you today, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Councillor Devine?
Yes, and thank you very much for your presentation. Greatly appreciate it. Just a question. Is there no water and sewage out in that area?
There is, but it's not nearby the site. Like, it doesn't go along the frontage of any of the properties.
And how far away would it be? Any idea?
I'd have to go back and look at the servicing plan, but I think it extends likely to the corner of Cherry Blossom and Boxwood Drive. But it doesn't run along the frontage of either of the properties.
Would it not be prudent to try and get water and sewage to these places as opposed to well and septic?
Through you, Chair, I do understand your question. I can confirm this. I have the functional servicing report.
Thank you.
If you can just give me one moment, please.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Sarah has that. Sarah's got that information, because we
Ms.
just went through that
Austin?
with the Hindu temple.
So just to provide some context, pardon me, there is sanitary sewer that was extended to the establishment next door. However, it's very shallow, and the way the grades of this proposed development are, they actually fall away from that. So extending a gravity sanitary sewer essentially west along Cherry Blossom or south down Boxwood, as shown on the plan here, is not really a practical option. There is water at the intersection of Boxwood and Cherry Blossom, but it doesn't currently extend across either frontage. Traditionally, the preference is if we're providing water, we also want to provide sanitary. Water may be feasible. The sanitary likely would put them on some type of a grinder pump or a force main configuration that really is not an ideal solution for an individual residential unit.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Oh, wait, sorry, Mayor Jan?
I have one. Good to see you, by the way.
Thank you.
Is that a pond on that severed land sea?
Through you, Chair, yes, it is a man-made pond, and it has been evaluated and is able to be filled in. And any of the stormwater that was heading towards that pond will be rerouted through ditches along the proposed property lines and extend onto Royal Oak Drive, which there's an existing ditch and it'll carry on.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We also have a brief presentation from Zara Alta-Kawi. Welcome, Zara.
Good evening, Mayor Liggett, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Zara Altakwi, senior planner on the file of OR 1125, 165 Cherry Blossom Road. Yeah, sorry about that. So as mentioned, I'll just wait for the presentation to go up. Okay. As mentioned by Sarah.
Sorry, could you just speak up a bit?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry about that. As mentioned by Sarah, an application is considered complete under the Planning Act on the date the city receives all required information and fees as prescribed by the Act. This application was deemed complete on October 3rd, 2025, following the receipt of all required fees and studies. The Planning Act establishes a statutory decision deadline of 120 days from the date of the application is deemed complete for official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments. For this application, the prescribed deadline is January 31st, 2026. At this time, no council meetings are scheduled for January. The next available meeting is on December 15th, with regular meetings expected to resume in February and specific dates to be confirmed. Staff may not be able to bring a recommendation report to council by December 15, as a resubmission or formal response will be required to address comments received during the circulation at the public meeting. The December 15 council meeting is a month and a half before the decision deadline under the Planning Act, and therefore staff may request a special council meeting to be held at the end of January and prior to January 31st to allow sufficient time to complete the processing of the application.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? See none, thank you.
Thank you.
Does council have any comments? This is your opportunity to provide any comments or direction. Seeing none, I declare this public meeting closed. And we will now move on to a motion to receive. Could I have the mover read the motion? Councilor Devine.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Earnshaw, that all presentations and correspondence from the November 4th, 2025 Planning Statutory Public Meeting Committee be received. I so move.
Thank you. We'll call the vote.
Opening voting. Closing voting. And that carries.
Thank you. We have now reached the end of our meeting. Could I have a mover read the motion? Councilor Roberts?
Yes, thank you. Chair Amata, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Recommendation that the Planning Statutory Public Meeting Committee does now adjourn at 7:21 p.m.
Thank you. We'll call the vote.
Opening voting. Closing voting. And that carries.
Thank you to everyone for taking the time to contribute your thoughts during our meeting. We will take a brief recess before moving into a council workshop. Thank you.